Attention, everybody. The views and opinions expressed on the show are not necessarily those of Acts Ministry, Acts Media Group, and or their affiliate subordinate ministries and or nonprofits. It's that time again. It's the happy hour with your hosts, Dr. Paul and his lovely wife, Nancy. So without any further ado, let's get on with the crazy, Dr. Paul. Take it away.
All right. Thank you very much, Matthew Dillon Pearson. And I missed your sidekick, Festus, but had a good visit with him before the broadcast came on the air. We come on the air every Friday morning at the same time, which means approximately 9:30, and we go until approximately 10:30. We are very casual, so obviously we are not a canned show. We're live right now. Even if you see this a week from now, we were live when we did it. Well, this is old Dr. Paul and sweet little Miss Nancy. And Nancy's got earphones. Are you too loud?
Yes.
Turn Nancy down, and I'm just fine. Anyway, I want to say good morning to Shirley Simpson. Always say that because she was my first secretary. She's a beautiful lady, lives in St. Joseph, Missouri, up in the northwest corner of the state, the little city of about 80,000 people, the last home of Jesse James before he was shot and murdered, shot in the back by Bob Ford. And people may get tired of hearing this, but I don't get tired of hearing it, that he was under the name of Mr. Howard. And so Bob Ford was the dirty little coward who shot Mr. Howard and laid poor Jesse in his grave. Also, home of the Pony Express. And it was my home in the early 1960s. Love old Joetown. Also, hello, Jerry Chambers, my teenage friend who's now a retired school administrator over in Chesterfield, Missouri. He was a member of my church in St. Joe.
That makes you old as dirt.
That makes me 85. And Jerry I helped him with his God and Country Award. Hello, Judy Nickel in Texas, and hello, Galen Garrett in Texas. Hello, Germany, Pakistan, South America, France. Hello, Sandy up there near Salisbury, Missouri. And hello, Tammy Renee Harris over in Illinois. Hello to all the other people that know that I know, that you know that I know, that you're listening. Well, today, sorry to report, we don't have Mr. Terry Sanders, Nancy. Had it all set up, and lo and behold, Branson has reopened for business on a limited scale, but open, and so Terry had to work today. Terry Sanders, for those of you who've been following my promos about him, and for those who haven't, Terry Sanders is Branson's premier comedian. He works a lot of different shows. He does great impersonations, and one of his best was his interpretation of Joan Rivers, who's now deceased, of course. But Nancy, you and I were in a big convention in Chicago, and thousands of people, and out on the stage comes, of all people, Joan Rivers, and I thought, how in the world did they get her here? And she's performing, and pretty soon I realized, that's not Joan Rivers, that's a man. Well, it was Mr. Terry Sanders. I promoted today the fact that we were going to look in his background to see if we could get the real Terry Sanders to stand up. Anyway, Terry, you can't watch us right now because you're working. You'll pick this up later. Kudos to you for being able to go back to work.
That's
now,
right.
Next, by the way, next week on Tuesday, the Randy Barr Spirit in America show, he will have as guest Peggy Brennan and her husband Jeff, and she was Radar's on MASH, Radar O'Reilly's girlfriend, and she and her husband do a show in Branson Thursday, Friday, and Saturdays at 5 o'clock at the Uptown Theater, and Peggy and Jeff, I understand, do a terrific show, and we're going to see it this Saturday night. And looking forward to it. But next Tuesday, they will be guests of Randy Barr. And then next Friday, a week from today, they'll be our guest on the happy hour. It's going to be like family reunion almost. But anyway, Peggy has this theme, I guess, from Broadway to TV to Hollywood to Branson. What a career. Beautiful lady, and her husband's a great guy, great singer. Now, Nancy, I have a whole stack of books back here, courtesy of our friend who just got off the morning drive, Dennis Everson.
Oh.
This is a pocket dictionary for Spanish, and this is a textbook to learn to speak Spanish, and this is a textbook to learn to speak Spanish. And the reason he gave those to me is because I am determined to learn to speak Spanish. I know a little bit of French, but after I learn enough Spanish to be conversational, then I'm going to get back into French and learn to be very conversational in French, because I was told by a French professor that French is spoken in more countries of the world than Spanish, and I did not know that. Anyway, as you can see, I want to keep on learning, keep the old brain stretching. To help you with your brain power this morning, a reminder, June the 14th, day after tomorrow, in 1777, the flag of the United States was officially brought forth, and Old Glory was born in Philadelphia on June the 14th, 1772. In these troubling times, at the end of each broadcast, I have quoted from Matthew 11, verses 28 through 30, the words of the greatest teacher who ever lived or who will ever live, Jesus the Christ, when he said, "Come to me, all you that are weary and carrying heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon me and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." That ought to encourage us in these days that have been so troubling that we're beginning to emerge from, hopefully. Oh, by the way, back on the subject of Spanish, I'm going to look it up in here, but I heard that the word tacos doesn't just mean something to eat. That tacos in Spanish is the word for lunch. How about that? Also, I found out that worldwide there are more tacos made and consumed than white bread. Think about that. Of course, tacos are made from corn. Isn't that amazing? Think of it. Also, I learned by doing a little research that there is no word for freedom in Chinese, in the Chinese language. No word for freedom. And there was no word for freedom in the Japanese language until after World War II. Now, isn't that something? Think about that, folks. Two groups of people numbering multiple millions that in their language, no word for freedom. What's that tell you?
So in China, way back.
No word for freedom,
No
ever.
word.
None today, ever.
I wonder how come.
Because it was a concept that was not even given thought to people actually being free. Isn't that something? Think about that. Being born into a culture where there's, unless you were in a, well, there was just no concept of freedom.
Oh, and I guess Christianity wouldn't be wanted either,
No,
because that talks about freedom and higher power and
that's
all
right.
that.
That's right. That's right. Also, here's a little tidbit of information for you. Every hour in the world, every hour, $100 million is spent on soldiers and munitions. Every hour, $100 million. So while we are on the air, worldwide, there will be at least $100 million spent on soldiers and ammunition for soldiers. In other words, for war. Also, another little tidbit of information for all of our faithful viewers. In the last 40 years, 1/2 of some of the known species of life on this earth have been lost.
Oh, wow.
Half of them. Think about it. There's half of various forms of life been lost. We're living in a depleted world. Also, in the 10-year period between 2004 and 2014, now this figure has gone up since then, but in that period of time, there was a 260% increase in earthquakes. Now that's not 260 more, 260% more earthquakes between 2004 and 2014, and the intensity and rapidity has increased since then.
Oh, wow.
The world population now stands at almost 8 billion people. That's a lot of folks. We spend $300 billion a year on heart disease. $300 billion a year. Now, I brought some figures with me, folks. You know, this is the happy hour with old Dr. Paul and sweet little Miss Nancy. So we put a nice spin on things if we possibly can. I am so thankful for two hands that come together. One, the hand of prayer, and the other, the hand of medicine. I'm a believer in both. I believe in both of them. And in the book of Acts, the Apostle Paul traveled with a medical doctor, Luke, who wrote the Gospel of Luke and the book of Acts. But that being aside, I believe in prayer and I believe in medicine. Prayer is very inexpensive. What does it cost to pray? You and I, we have prayed today. What did it cost us, money-wise? Nothing, right? Didn't cost a dime, not a penny, not a mill. By the way, I'm old enough, I remember mills. Those of you not old enough, research it and find out about the mill tax.
How do you spell mill?
M-I-L-L, mill, which meant, or M-I-L, which meant 1/10 of 1 penny. And we had them when I was a kid during World War II. Anyway, let's talk about the cost of medicine. I got this little tidbit in the mail day before yesterday. Some of you may remember that on April the 9th, I had a third stent placed in a third coronary artery. Now that's my third. The first one was placed in that ascending or descending, whatever, that Widowmaker artery. That was the first one placed, coming up 5 years ago. And then the second one 5 weeks later in an artery somewhere. And then this past April the 9th, I had a third one put in an artery on the back of my heart. That keeps them open so that blood will flow. Now, it'll be 2 weeks Monday, I had a pacemaker put in. So I've got a lump right here and a nice 3-inch scar, not a scar, a 3-inch incision that's still healing, etc., from a pacemaker that has 3 wires. And I tell people I got an assistant pump and some new wiring. So, and with those 3 stents, I should be able to pass inspection for another 100,000 miles. Thanks to prayer, which costs nothing, and medicine, and here's what the stent cost.
Oh, boy.
Here we go. Now, the pacemaker, when I get that report, I'll let you know. It's more so. But just the stent. Here's some kind of thing where they interpreted of the report. Some EKG or something, that somebody interpreted it, and it cost $23.22 for them to interpret it. And then they interpreted it again, $23.22. And that totaled out to $46.44 just for somebody to interpret something. Then they had a pharmacy bill on here. I guess it's where they probably gave me a little juice or something. I don't know. $54.30. And then they had under the pharmacy medical / surgical supplies and devices, $470.34. And I've only begun. Hang on. Take care of your heart. The intravascular Doppler Velox / press derived COR flow reserve, me, whatever all that is, $5,023. Drugs requiring specific ident, drugs requiring detailed CO, $1,027.12. INJ, Inge midazolam hydrochloride, $55.96. LOCM, 300 to 399 micrograms, milliliters of iodine, milliliter, whatever, $1,013.40. Integral ECG, $700.82. All of that so far totals $60,373.97 to insert a little piece of metal. Okay, I continue. Placement, transcatheter percutaneous transcatheter placement of intracoronary stent. Hope you're not bored. $1,750. Now that was to put that little thing in me. Catheter placement in coronary artery for coronary angiogram, $881. Intravascular ultrasound during intervention, that is so they can see where they're going with that little device, $268. The catheter transluminal angioplasty non-laser may include G, $1,485. The catheter intravascular ultrasound, $3,500. Guide wire, little wire to guide all that up in there. It's an expensive piece of wire, $3,434. The catheter, now don't get bored with me, folks. This is relevant. Someday you may have to have a stent. Catheter guiding may include infusion / perfusion capability, $586.80. They don't miss a trick, do they? Closure device, vascular, implantable, insertable. That was really a little thing that was like silly putty they put on you to close the wound. And there was a little dab of it. A little dab will do you $1,182.50. The stent, coated / covered with delivery system, $7,000 for that little piece of metal. Basic metabolic panel, whatever that is.
That's lab.
Is that lab?
Yeah.
$197.91. The BLD CNT hemo / pit, auto, CMPLT DIF.WBC, $127.62. Could have fooled me. Oh, percutaneous transcatheter placement of intracoronary stent.
Wow.
To place it. Now, this is additional. All these are separate items. $19,822. Now, endoluminal imaging of coronary vessel or graft using intra, V, $1,003.20. Matt, if your dad could charge by the piece and every motion, every movement, every tool, when he had been in mechanic, he'd have been wealthy. Catheter placement in coronary artery S for coronary angiogram, I guess. Now this is another placement, same stent, $13,690. And let's see what else we got here. Well, here we got moderate sedation services provided by the same physician, $34. Had the total of that kind of stuff, $2,933. Here's your grand total. I finally getting there, folks. $63,353.41. $63,353.41. How much is the human body worth in dollars and cents? Maybe $4.95. But how much is the soul worth? A life that Jesus gave on the cross. By his stripes we were healed, and we messed up and cost us $63,000 plus. Think about it, folks. Take care of yourselves. Take care of yourselves. One way to do that is to watch what you eat. Did you know that Americans eat 70,000 microplastic particles every year? Microscopic plastics are tiny, often microscopic bits of plastic from food and water containers, and the breakdown of larger plastic products in the environment. And they don't know what the health results will be long term. So, Nancy,
Constipation.
what do you say about the medical report? Now, won't it be a doozy a month from now when I get the one for the pacemaker to read that?
Mm-hmm.
I'm becoming more valuable all the time if they could just scrap me out.
Yeah.
Oh, my.
Does it say how much you have to pay for all of that?
Oh, yeah, somewhere in here, but I'm not going to mess with that because I don't want to cloud the water.
Oh.
We do know that the insurance industry in this country is huge, and now we understand why, that it's really a huge industry. And somewhere I have the statistics here as to how many people have private insurance, how many have insurance through their jobs, how many have Medicaid, how many have Medicare, etc. And I have used that on the program before. But again, Matthew 11:28, come to me, all you that are weary and carrying heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. That is the word of the Lord. Now, Nancy, we'll move away from the happy note about medicine. Aren't you glad, though, that medicine exists? Think about that. Matt, you've had major surgery a couple of times, haven't you?
Yeah, actually, one of them I was not really awake for because I had a car accident. But yeah, I've had a trauma surgery on my upper arm and 4 hernia surgeries.
Wow. Well, I've had 2
Insanely
abdominal surgeries where they really open you up big time, and then I've had some other surgeries that were minor compared to that. But in the case of the stents, when they place those, you're awake. They give you a little Kickapoo Joy juice, just enough so that you don't care what they do.
I think that particular medication is called Versed, and yes, it's the don't care juice. Yeah, that's a good one.
And then with this pacemaker, I was awake, and I have a very high pain tolerance. However, they just about reached my limit, I'm telling you. Cutting me open was no big deal. It was when they started moving tissue, pulling tissue apart, forcing this little flying saucer in between layers of flesh that I thought, well, doggies, I've about reached my limit, but it was okay. Glad that they have them. I also have a machine that sits on the bedside table next to my side of the bed, and it's plugged in, and it sends a signal to the nearest cell phone tower and keeps the heart center aware of my heart activity all night long. And when they go in to work in the mornings, like this morning, somebody checked my heart on that, how it did during the night. And I was just thinking, Nancy, we have people who, in our circle of acquaintances, who are at various levels of conspiracy theories. I need to ask them what they think about my heart monitor. It's possible I'm being monitored. Yeah, I guess I am, and I'm thankful for that. There's something, I call this smartphone stupid, but actually, it's probably operator error. But nevertheless, I may poke a little fun at technology, but technology's great. I have to tell them about this pacemaker thing, Nancy. When they released me, and I was in the foyer of the hospital waiting for Nancy to come pick me up, and all of a sudden I started feeling my heartbeat down here, my left lower front, right about the rib cage between that and my belt line. And it was bumping so hard I could see my shirt bouncing out. So I had presence enough of mind. This is a good hint for you folks. When you're in that hospital bed, look at that whiteboard up there and make a note of the phone number for that unit. So I had it in my phone, and I called that unit, told some lady what was happening, and she said, well, if you're not feeling faint or you don't have chest pains, it's nothing serious. And I said, okay, and I hung up, and it got worse. I thought, this isn't right. So I called and I asked for the male nurse, young, middle-aged guy, kind of chunky, looked like he could have been a short professional wrestler, and very competent. And I asked for him personally. I told him what was going on. He said, I'll be down to get you in a wheelchair. Took me back to the unit, plugged me in again, and checked with the experts and said it'll be okay, sent me home. Well, the other day, we went in to have the things checked, and the lady set me in what I call a padded electric chair, because I knew it was obviously picking up signals, because she had a machine next to me, like a laptop computer like Matt Dillon Pearson's working on over there, and she started typing in stuff and adjusting so that that beat that was being referred down here went away. It's an adventure, but as I've said, growing old is not for sissies. You gotta be a real man or a real woman to get older, but take care of yourselves along the way and be thankful for prayer, first of all, and secondly, for wonderful American medicine. Now, on another topic, Nancy, there's a whole lot of stuff happening in the last week since we were on the air about the demonstrations and all that, but there's also this movement. A lot of folks now they're called the cancel culture. They're wanting to cancel a lot of stuff. They want to cancel police forces. Now, some of you are going to say, no, Paul, they just want to rearrange them, and, yeah, sure they do. They're not called the cancel culture for nothing. We have some people who are majoring in anarchy, which means no law, especially where they're concerned, who are calling for defunding police departments and reallocate. Some want to totally defund them, get rid of them. Some want to rearrange their funding, but it's called the cancel culture. Have you been noticing this?
Sure. As time goes by and the world is coming to an end, it's not like it's going to end later today or tomorrow, but that end is coming, and there's going to be changes. This may just be part of it.
But if it does end later today or tomorrow, we're ready.
That's right.
And Matthew Dillon Pearson is ready. And old Jason, who is, I call him Festus, Matt's sidekick, he's ready. We have Shirley Simpson is ready. Jerry Chambers is ready. Judy Nickel is ready. Galen Garrett is ready. Our friends up in northeast Missouri, Janie Wood and her little congregation, they're all ready. Lynn Purdy up there near that lake with his country congregation, they're ready. We know a lot of people who are ready. Mm-hmm. But the cancel culture. I saw on the news this morning, there's a cartoon they want to cancel called the Paw Patrol, P-A-W, little dog's cartoon character, who is a little dog policeman. A cartoon. They want to cancel Paw Patrol because it glorifies the police in children's minds. Well, which would you rather have? Children admiring police or being afraid of police?
But think where this is going.
Mm-hmm.
If they do that with that cartoon, they are going to absolutely get rid of literally any and everything.
Well, they're taking Elmer Fudd's shotgun away.
And Yosemite Sam's.
And Yosemite Sam, there'll be no more of you ornery scallywags and pulling out his two hog legs and shooting up in the air in a saloon door.
Well,
We're talking
they'll probably get rid of all the old westerns also because of guns.
they have canceled the showings of Gone with the Wind, a classic movie based on a story written by a great authoress, a lady, but they have canceled the showing of that old movie with Clark Gable playing the part of Rhett Butler. They've canceled it to not be shown on HBO. So they're wanting to get rid of cartoons like the Paw Patrol. They're wanting to defund the police. And now they're defacing statues, smearing them with all kinds of stuff, and then wanting them, and they're tearing them down. Statues of not just Civil War figures, Confederate figures, but they've even defaced the Lincoln Memorial. They have defaced the Veterans Administration building, the sign "Veterans," spray painted over the word "Veterans." They are wanting to take statues out of the Hall of Congress, that each state gets to have 2 statues of significant persons, and they're wanting to take out, and Nancy Pelosi's promoting this, who is the Speaker of the House, take out all these statues that had anything to do with any part of American history that she doesn't like.
And the important words are she doesn't like.
That's right. And here's the thing, folks. History is history. We may not like all of it, but it is still history. We may love part of it and hate other parts, but it's all history. If we wipe out our history, we begin to wipe out our identity of who we are, where we came from. I submit to you that if people want where they came from to be remembered, and they want people to know that they came from wherever, what their roots are, our country's entitled to the same thing. I will not forget Pearl Harbor. My mother wore a little brooch that said, "Remember Pearl Harbor." I remember Pearl Harbor. I was 6.5 when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. I remember World War II. I went to the train station to see my brothers leave for the war, and cousins and uncles and neighbors. I remember all that. And I will remember it even through eternity. Even through eternity. You cannot, just because you get rid of some statues, folks, just because you get rid of the flag, the Confederate flag, which was really the Confederate battle flag at NASCAR, you're not going to wipe out the history. In order to do that, you're going to have to wipe out a lot of people, because we're still around, and some of us remember history because we lived it. The Paw Patrol, the police, statues, the flags, and Gone with the Wind. What else? What would be next that they'd want to eradicate? Well, we've already had the rewriting of our history books in a lot of ways.
That's probably why people are the way they are now, because they weren't taught.
That's right. They don't, and when you lose your heritage, I can't explain it, but it's almost like you're in a vacuum. Mm-hmm. I don't know how many people dare to watch Duck Dynasty, but they're in reruns, of course, and quite a Christian family down there in West Monroe, Louisiana, and some say Louisiana, some say Louisiana. Anyway, their show typifies hanging on to faith, family, and country, and it's always funny, it's interesting, and finds a way to tug at your heart just a little bit too.
This comes to mind. Excuse me. If people want to get people taken care of. If people want to take care of the police, if people want to take care of all of this other stuff, they need to take care of themselves first, and then things will start to be taken care of.
Well, remember, the greatest teacher that ever lived
That's-
said, love God with all of your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and your neighbor as
Yourself.
yourself. And I said years ago that if you don't love yourself, you don't have the capacity to love anybody else.
Oh, and also, you need to keep your own mind in your own heart.
Yes. In other words,
And you should not be moved by somebody else's ideas or anything else.
the people I admire most are people who think for themselves.
That's right.
The people I admire least are those who are subject to mob mentality. And next to that, coming down in importance, less important, serious, are those who are strictly those who want to follow the culture. I remember when my daughter was a little girl, she would say, Dad, I want to do so-and-so. And I'd say, no. And she'd say, but Dad, everybody, no. Well, Dad, everybody. I said, no, not everybody. But Dad, everybody. I said, no, not everybody, because you're not. But you see, it's like if somebody says like a lot, like they say like a lot, then pretty soon we're all like saying like. Or if somebody says like then pretty soon we're all like saying That's pretty frivolous, but it is a happy hour. On the other hand, just because something becomes popular in culture, remember, popular culture becomes, the word culture comes from cult. It's an extension of the word cult. You don't have to follow along. There was a time when I was real young and more interested in the stock market then than I am now, when they would predict the stock market by the length of women's skirts. And fashions were determined in Europe, specifically in France. And if ladies' skirts were shortened a little bit, they figured the stock market would go up. If they were dropped a little bit, they figured the market would go down. I don't know how true that was, but I remember a lot of people, their stock market activity was based on that idea. So humankind is very subject to just falling in line. I'm not real good at standing in line. Years ago, there was a restaurant here in Springfield, Missouri. By the way, folks, from the international audience, other places in the country, I've neglected to tell you, we're in Springfield, Missouri, southwest quadrant of the state of Missouri. The state of Missouri is in the middle of the country of the United States. That puts us in the middle of the world right now. But I call my favorite adopted city, and I've been here since August of 1977, I call it lovingly Springburg, USA. Now, to show that how casual we are, not canned, we just last week had a telethon for Axe Media Group, and one of the contests was a sandwich contest that I had the privilege of naming, and it was the Springburg Sandwich Saint.
I heard that you were upset that you couldn't compete in that.
Right, I wanted to,
Since
but
you named it, I thought Dr. Paul should be here.
I had a favorite sandwich, and I was going to bring it, but I had surgery, and I was recovering.
Tell us about the sandwich you were going to.
All right, you take 2 slices. Any good sandwich, you got to have 2 slices of bread. Wheatberry, any brand, as long as it's Wheatberry bread. And you put on each side, well, inside of each slice, some butter. Real butter, not that phony stuff.
Unsalted or salted?
Well,
Unsalted.
Unsalted, so we can be healthy. And then on that you spread some peanut butter. on each slice of these bread, the bread like that, see my hands? And then on the peanut butter, you spread a light coating of mayonnaise, a little heavier coating if you really like mayonnaise, all right? The mayonnaise. Then you put, now, I found out another medical thing, I'm allergic to tomatoes. But before I knew that, 2 really nice ripe tomatoes, not falling apart, but slicing tomatoes that slice just right, and fit on there. And then some little bit of salt, just a touch, and plenty of black pepper, plenty of that. And then you take some dill pickles, sliced dill pickles.
He's pregnant.
And you place those on there, a thin layer. You put the top on it, like that. You've got the world's finest sandwich, the true Springburg, USA sandwich saint.
I think you should call it Lego My Prego.
No. We're not going to adulterate my sandwich.
We always argue about naming things, Dr. Paul and I.
When I was teaching at the local community college here, in one of my classes, either philosophy or ethics or something, I brought up my favorite sandwich. The next class session, one of the girls in my class brought samples of my sandwich, enough samples for every student in the class. I had like 24, 25 students, and they all sampled my sandwich, and I'm here to report they all liked it. It is very tasty. It has layers of flavor. It has layers of softness, layers of crunchiness, layers of nutrition. It has everything that you would ever want in a sandwich. So, I rest my case on
It's
that.
got a whole bunch that I wouldn't want.
It sounds that way. Okay. The telethon, by the way, for all of you who participated last week, on behalf of everybody involved with Axe Media Group, thank you very much. Continue to participate, even though there's the items that you were bidding on and all that sort of thing are all gone. Continue to participate by your regular donations. Just make it a habit that every month you're going to hit the donate button for Axe Media Group. It'll be greatly appreciated, I assure you. Now, Nancy, with all this cancel culture going on, we are having some additives in our society, social additives. I've noticed that our university system is beginning to incorporate new offices specifically in support of a variety of ethnic concerns and social concerns. So they're expanding their offerings on the university level, and a lot of it has to do with some of the disruption that's been going on in our nation over the last 2 or 3 weeks. So there's also been a negative additive, that is censorship. And censorship, when I think about it, takes me back to World War II, when letters from military personnel overseas sometimes would arrive, and when the mom and dad or the wife opened them up, there may have been portions blacked out or actually cut out of their handwritten notes, because the military person may have inadvertently given away a location or something that the military considered sensitive. So censorship goes way back. We now have letters that come out of correctional institutions, prisons, that are censored.
I know, but that's always been, hadn't it?
Oh, yes. And letters going in have been censored. Mm-hmm. And we still have reports and testimony that's given to Congress or in courts, and especially in Congress, where you'll see they'll release the report, but all kinds of names and places are blacked out. Makes it difficult to read. But censorship is likewise a part of social media. Now, I know this is a sensitive area, and most people, when they're on social media, such as we are, would be reluctant to mention it. But this thing of censorship's been going on a long time, folks. I worked in radio. We had some things in radio that were censored. I did television commercials. There were things on television way back then that were censored. I was a magazine editor for a Christian publication. Some things were censored. Censorship, depending on the media or the medium, could be on the level of an editor, or it could be on the level of the publisher. In the case of television medium, it could be in the editing booth, even if something is live. Even talk radio that's live, if somebody is calling in, they are censored because they talk to the person off microphone. In the case of Rush Limbaugh, well known, he has his Mr. Snerdley off camera, off microphone. And in order for someone to get on the telephone line with Rush Limbaugh, they have to go through Mr. Snerdley. And Mr. Snerdley will be very careful that somebody's not going to be saying things that are very radical or using the wrong language. So censorship, folks, is a part of who we are, and it's never going to get lessened. As our population grows in this country and in the world, censorship will become more evident and more necessary. Personally, there are some things that I'm glad are censored. Mm-hmm. If there's something that I would find disturbing or offensive, then that would be something that I wouldn't want younger people to have to be exposed to. Any words about censorship? Because I've got another word about it. Think about it biblically.
One day, it may not be later today, it may not be tomorrow, it may not be next year. Everything will be made known. In fact, thank you, Jesus, the Holy Spirit knows exactly what's going on in the mind and the heart of whoever says it. So nothing is really lost. We may not see or hear it as he sees and hears it, but he, the big H-E, can make it known what's in the mind or the eye of a person. He can make it known to someone else, but he keeps track and he keeps account. The only way that that's taken care of is by the blood of Jesus covering somebody.
Well, and Nancy, also, I was thinking about how the Bible in various ways entreats us to guard our speech.
Exactly.
We are to be the guardians of our speech. Mm-hmm. About 2 weeks ago, there was a posting on Facebook by someone I've known a long time. And I was amazed that with this, because of the nature of it being at the lowest level of sexuality, I'll put it that way, that it got through. It was in very poor taste, to say the least. And quite frankly, friends, this person has made it a point to present himself as a Christian and has done a lot of media work for churches in this area, and one in particular. And his posting was so crude, so unchristian, with such terrible immoral overtones that it surpassed what you would hear in the gutter. And so I had his phone number. I sent him a text. And frankly, I didn't get cross with him, but I did, in a nice way, reprimand him that kind of posting was not appropriate. I've had to do that twice with him. Twice. So censorship should begin with us, is my point, folks. Mm-hmm. Let it begin with moi, with me.
That's right.
Let us guard our language. Let us guard our speech. And Nancy, where does language and speech begin? In your favorite place, the heart.
That's right.
As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he.
Mm-hmm.
And what is your favorite verse there about the thoughts and intents?
Oh, I know that's right.
Go
the
ahead.
Thoughts and
God knows.
the thoughts and intents of the heart.
That's right.
He does.
So censor your heart, because that's where it begins.
That's right.
And God knows the thoughts and intents of your heart. That's in Hebrews chapter 6.
So, yeah. So your mouth sometimes and your actions, maybe your actions follow your mouth, which may end up following your heart.
Well, but if you hear the words, or you see the actions and hear the words, it's pointing to a heart that is not right.
That's right.
Because Jesus said, it is not that which goes into the mouth and out to the sewer that defiles a person. What comes out of the heart is what defiles the person. So censorship begins with us.
That's right.
So before we complain about any television network or any local news outlet or any social media outlet censoring, think about yourself.
That's right.
Now, that has to do with the cancel culture and the additive culture. And Matt Dillon Pearson says we have 4 minutes. In those 4 minutes, Nancy, I want to point out that apparently this coming Monday, the governor of the great and sovereign state of Missouri, who is the governor of the same great and sovereign state of Missouri. Depends, it's like Louisiana and Louisiana. We have Missouri or Missouri, depending on where you're from. Anyway, the governor of Missouri, Governor Parson, is set to make an announcement that next Monday, Missouri is open for business. I don't know the full extent of what that means, but I do know it's in connection with the COVID-19, known as the coronavirus, that has had our system shut down for several weeks and then partially open several weeks. But it will be interesting to see what's going to happen about his announcement. I suggest that all of us be alert now and have a good heart, good thoughts, and try to think good, clean, healthy thoughts as we look to the reopening of things. Let's not have a mad rush. Remember the great toilet tissue shortage? Some people call it toilet paper, whatever you want to call it. I called it the great paper caper because people were almost stealing the stuff. You know, it became valuable. Probably was more valuable than silver at that for a while, the great paper caper. Let's not have any more of that, folks. Let's all have a good heart and a positive mind and be cooperative and do our best. Even though society opens up more, maybe completely, let's do our best to keep ourselves clean and healthy. And if we notice that we're not feeling well, or if we're in a high-risk group like myself, let's be careful where we go and the people we see, and etc. Let's turn the tables on the doomsday preachers and let them know that, yeah, we had some bad times, but maybe just a portent of things to come. Eventually, we know everything's going to wrap up, but let's turn the tables on those right now and about famine. Let's start feeding people again all over the world. Let's not have a doomsday outlook about the election coming up in about 5 months here in the United States of America. Let's stay positive and upbeat and thankful for freedom. Let's not be overly concerned, really, about the price of oil and the price of gasoline and inflation, all of these things. Instead, let's give more attention to seeing how many friends we can accumulate so that we don't have a shortage of friends. Let's see how many new good words we can learn instead of falling victim to some of the bad language that has penetrated Hollywood. It penetrates our homes via the television and even via internet, so forth. Let's make it a better world, and we can do it. Nancy, I wrote down a little 3-word phrase the other day that I hope I can avoid being a part of, and I know you can because you're steadfast as a rock. I want all of us to not become silly, putty people. Remember silly putty? Mm-hmm. You could just mold it and shape it, stretch it, bounce it, do all kinds of stuff with it. That's kind of the way too much of our society has become. Too many silly, putty people. Minds easily shaped and molded, and thoughts and feelings, and become trapped in debt, and we don't want to be silly, putty people, so easily malleable. Let's be the people of God instead. Steadfast, solid, people who can take a stand, and having stood, continue to stand. Let's be people of strength, not silly, putty people.
People of love.
People of what?
Love.
Yes, very definitely. And I'm not struggling here, folks, to try to stretch time. There's just so much that's in my mind and in my heart that I want to say to you. Anyway, there'll be another time for that. It has been the happy hour. I'm happy that I'm here, and I'm happy that for my birthday last week I received a pacemaker, that other little assistant engine, and some 3 new wires, and that I'm good for another 100,000 miles. And I am thankful for the United States of America. I'm thankful for Springburg, USA. I'm thankful for old St. Joe. I'm thankful for Texas, the Lone Star State. I'm thankful for good old St. Louis, home of the first World's Fair, by the way. I'm thankful. And I'm thankful that there will be a Missouri State Fair this year. There's a lot to be thankful for. Well, all of you, watch us again next Friday when we have with us Peggy Brennan and her husband, the lady from Broadway to television to Hollywood to Branson, Radar O'Reilly's girlfriend. What a treat. See you then. Meantime, this is old Paul and sweet little Miss Nancy saying, stay blessed, and we mean it. See you next Friday.